Talk to me about home Opie. Are you excited? Do you get jitters?
You know what? I do.
Good.
Like, it's just good. Like, that just means you're alive. And I think that, like,
Yes.
I will always get jitters. You know what I mean? Like, I think that's,
Of course.
Have you ever witnessed a betrayal so deep and calculated that it leaves an entire fan base screaming at their screens, wondering if the front office of their favorite team has completely lost its mind? The sports world is no stranger to wild coaching changes, bitter rivalries, and shocking off-season drama. But what just went down in the WNBA has crossed a line that absolutely no one saw coming. When the Indiana Fever unceremoniously dumped their head coach to bring in a seasoned veteran, it was supposed to be a massive upgrade for a struggling franchise that had finally struck gold. Instead, it lit a match in a room completely soaked in gasoline. The woman stepping in to guide the greatest generational talent the sport has ever seen is the exact same mastermind who orchestrated one of the most brutal, physical, and controversial playoff beatdowns against her just months prior. Fans are absolutely furious, flooding social media with accusations of betrayal, conspiracy, and straight-up front office incompetence. But the real fire is not just coming from angry people on the internet typing in all caps. Behind closed doors, the players know exactly what is going on, and someone finally had the absolute guts to say it out loud. Phoenix Mercury star Sophie Cunningham, a player famous for her raw, unfiltered honesty and refusal to play the league's PR games, has completely ripped the lid off the worst-kept secret in women's basketball. What she exposed about the toxic jealousy, the targeted aggression, and the blatant sabotage aimed at the league's golden rookie changes everything we thought we knew about this massive coaching shakeup and sets the stage for a locker room civil war. But to truly understand the sheer magnitude of this exposure and why fans are threatening to boycott, you have to rewind to a rookie season that looked more like a psychological and physical survival test than a traditional basketball campaign. From the very moment Caitlin Clark stepped onto the professional hardwood, bringing unprecedented millions of viewers, sold-out arenas, and charter flights with her, it was painfully obvious that the league's veterans were not going to roll out the red carpet. They wanted to test her, break her, and prove that college hype does not translate to professional dominance. And absolutely no team embodied this hostile, militant welcoming committee quite like the Connecticut Sun, led by their brilliant but fiercely aggressive head coach, Stephanie White. Under her watch, the defensive schemes deployed against the rookie were not just tight or competitive. They were suffocating, relentless, and at times, downright dangerous. Fans watched in absolute horror night after night as the young star was shoved, battered, and targeted in ways that went far beyond traditional basketball physicality. It felt like watching a coordinated hit job disguised as a defensive strategy. White stood on the sidelines, arms crossed, watching her players execute a game plan that seemed designed to inflict maximum frustration and physical toll on a 22-year-old who was just trying to play the game. The sheer hostility of these matchups became the defining narrative of the season, creating a massive divide between purists who claimed it was just tough defense and furious fans who saw it as blatant, unchecked targeting. The absolute climax of this hostility erupted during the playoffs, a series that will forever be burned into the memories of furious supporters as the ultimate display of league-sanctioned sabotage. It was a highly anticipated matchup, defined by highly controversial no-calls, endless trash talk, and a horrifying moment where the rookie took a vicious, uncalled hit directly to the eye from Sun defender Dejanai Carrington. Through it all, the head coach stood on the sidelines, defending her players' aggression, deflecting media questions, and completely downplaying the obvious targeting that the entire world could see in slow motion. It felt like a highly calculated mission to completely dismantle the rookie's confidence, an orchestrated sabotage designed to protect the old guard's fragile ego from being overshadowed by a first-year player. The strategy undeniably worked in the short term, as the Sun advanced, and the rookie was sent packing, battered, bruised, and eliminated from championship contention. For the fans, the Connecticut Sun and Stephanie White became public enemy number one. They represented the old, bitter establishment that refused to adapt to the new era of basketball, choosing instead to try and bully the future out of the building. The series left an incredibly sour taste in the mouths of millions of new viewers who could not understand why a league would allow its biggest financial asset to be treated like a tackling dummy. Yet, the story was far from over, because the league's silent code of turning a blind eye to this blatant mistreatment was about to be completely shattered by a whistleblower from the inside. Enter a veteran who has never been afraid to ruffle feathers, challenge authority, or speak her absolute truth, regardless of the consequences. Sophie Cunningham is not just a phenomenal athlete, she is a massive lightning rod for keeping things intensely real in a landscape dominated by rehearsed media training. While other players tiptoed carefully around the press, offering heavily sanitized PR statements about how physical the league is and how rookies have to earn their stripes, Cunningham saw right through the massive cloud of smoke and mirrors. She recognized the undeniable undercurrent of bitter resentment that was poisoning the locker rooms and heavily infecting defensive strategies across the entire country. In a series of breathtakingly candid moments, she called out the petty jealousy that had violently gripped the league, exposing exactly how certain veterans and coaching staffs were going out of their way to make a brutal example out of the new girl. She did not hold back a single inch, making it crystal clear that the rookie was bringing unprecedented money, massive brand deals, global attention, and long overdue chartered flights to a league that had desperately begged for growth for over 2 decades. According to Cunningham's explosive revelations, the players and coaches who were actively trying to tear the rookie down needed to immediately swallow their pride, check their egos at the door, and recognize the massive financial blessing standing right in front of them. Her words cut like a razor-sharp knife through the industry, because they totally validated everything the furious fans had been screaming from the bleachers and on social media for months. She essentially confirmed, without needing to name-drop every single offender, that the brutal, borderline violent tactics deployed by teams like the Connecticut Sun were not just standard playoff defense. They were deeply personal, wildly petty, and rooted in a deep-seated resentment that was rotting the league from the inside out. Cunningham's exposure completely shifted the narrative. It was no longer just crazy fan conspiracies. It was a verified reality backed by a highly respected veteran who was totally sick of watching her peers act like jealous high schoolers. She painted a picture of a league completely divided between players who wanted to elevate the game and players who wanted to drag the game back into the dark ages just to protect their own completely fabricated sense of superiority. This completely destroyed the facade that Stephanie White and her defensive enforcers were just playing hard-nosed basketball, exposing it instead as a coordinated, jealous campaign. And what happened next would shock everyone, turning a simmering, deeply controversial offseason into a full-blown inferno of outrage and confusion. Just weeks after the brutal playoff elimination, the Indiana Fever front office made a deeply shocking decision that sent massive shockwaves through the entire global sports world. They fired Christy Sides, the coach who had awkwardly navigated the team through a highly chaotic, high-pressure season, and prepared to announce their new hire. Fans were begging for a visionary, an offensive genius, someone who could unlock the rookie's full potential and protect her from the wolves. Instead, the announcement dropped like an absolute nuclear bomb. It wasn't a neutral, fresh-faced outsider. It wasn't a highly touted development specialist from the college ranks. It was the very woman who had just ruthlessly engineered the playoff sabotage against their franchise player. Stephanie White was officially named the brand new head coach of the Indiana Fever. The sheer irony of the situation was so incredibly thick, you could cut it with a chainsaw. The ultimate architect of the hostility, the coach who stood by with a smirk while her former players poked, prodded, and bruised the league's absolute biggest asset, was now being handed the literal keys to her future. It was a plot twist so completely absurd that even Hollywood screenwriters would have rejected it for being too wildly unrealistic. The fan reaction was instantaneous, deafening, and entirely explosive. Social media timelines immediately turned into digital war zones, with fiercely loyal supporters demanding absolute answers from the Fever's front office and general manager. How in the world could they violently betray their star player like this? How could they force a generational talent to take direct orders from a woman who had just spent an entire grueling season trying to systematically destroy her physical rhythm and mental peace on the court? Fans immediately pointed back to the brutal playoff series, aggressively circulating high-definition clips of the eye poke, the aggressive hard fouls, and the arrogant smirks from the Suns' bench, demanding to know how any of this made logical sense for a franchise trying to build a championship dynasty. The word "sabotage" started trending globally, with furious supporters heavily claiming this was a massive inside job by a league front office that fundamentally still did not want to see its newest star truly succeed on her own terms. People began questioning if the Fever's management was being completely pressured by the league to rein in the rookie's massive influence by strapping her to an old-school, deeply rigid coach who would severely limit her freedom. The absolute fury of the fans was not just about winning or losing basketball games anymore. It was about protecting a player they felt was being actively hunted by the very establishment she was currently saving from financial ruin. But the massive public outrage was only the surface level of a much deeper, far more incredibly complicated psychological problem brewing behind the scenes. You have to deeply analyze the intense psychological warfare now sitting quietly inside that Indiana locker room waiting for the season to start. When training camp officially opens, the dynamic between this new head coach and her superstar franchise player is going to be incredibly, almost suffocatingly tense. Can a player truly, genuinely trust a leader who, just a few short months prior, actively encouraged defenders to violently cross the line to stop her? This is exactly the insanely toxic environment the outspoken Phoenix guard was warning everyone about when she grabbed the microphone. When Sophie Cunningham boldly exposed the underlying jealousy and the stubborn refusal of the old guard to adapt to the new reality, she was practically predicting this exact disastrous clash of cultures. The new coach is arrogantly walking into a building where she is universally viewed as the absolute enemy by millions of fiercely protective fans, and she has to somehow magically convince her young, deeply scarred star that they are now suddenly on the same exact side. It requires a massive, almost impossible swallowing of pride on both ends of the court. Critics and highly respected sports analysts are incredibly skeptical that this bizarre marriage can actually work. They strongly believe the old saying that a tiger absolutely never changes its stripes, and that the deeply ingrained veteran coaching mentality, the one that arrogantly believes highly touted rookies must be violently broken down before they can be built back up, will inevitably clash with a generational talent who already fully knows how to win and dominate. The massive, undeniable fear is that this controversial hiring isn't a bold step forward toward a championship, but a highly calculated, heavily disguised leash placed around the neck of a player who was getting way too incredibly powerful, way too insanely fast. If Stephanie White attempts to implement the exact same gritty, slow, defensively exhausting system she ran in Connecticut, she will completely neutralize the fast-paced, deep-shooting, electric style that made Caitlin Clark a global phenomenon in the first place. Fans are terrified that White will force Clark to stop shooting from the logo, demand she play a traditional, deeply boring style of half-court basketball, and essentially sabotage her career from the inside out, just to prove that the old-school coaching methods are still superior. This deep fear of tactical sabotage is what is keeping Fever fans awake at night and fueling the absolute rage directed at the front office. This heavily hidden agenda is exactly what makes the entire terrifying situation so utterly fascinating and incredibly volatile. The league has always historically struggled with exactly how to heavily market its bright new stars, while awkwardly trying to respect the fragile egos of its aging veterans. But this current disaster feels entirely different. It feels deeply, uncomfortably personal. The massive revelations bravely brought forward by players, completely unafraid to speak out, have painted a highly disturbing picture of a heavily divided league, split right down the absolute middle between the bitter old school and the highly lucrative new revolution. The new Fever coach perfectly represents the absolute pinnacle of that stubborn old-school mentality, an absolute grinder who fiercely believes in earning every single microscopic inch of respect through blood, sweat, and intense physical dominance. Her defensive schemes during her time in Connecticut were a literal masterclass in intense psychological pressure and physical intimidation. But trying to apply that exact same immense pressure from the sideline as a supposedly supportive mentor to a young player whose insanely massive fan base aggressively analyzes every single micro-expression and sideline interaction is a completely different, highly dangerous ballgame. If the young star struggles early in the new season, misses a few shots, or if the newly implemented offensive system seemingly holds her back from shooting those iconic, crowd-erupting deep threes, the entire internet is going to completely and violently erupt. The loud accusations of internal sabotage will immediately return tenfold, completely dominating the daily sports news cycle. Every single timeout called, every single momentary benching for rest, every single harsh coaching word caught on a hot microphone will be instantly dissected, clipped, and deeply analyzed as absolute proof that the coach is secretly trying to ruin her own franchise player just to deeply satisfy the league's bitter, jealous veterans. The pressure is completely unprecedented. Never in the history of modern sports has a head coach been under this level of intense, suffocating scrutiny from day one. Stephanie White isn't just coaching a basketball team. She is navigating a highly explosive minefield where one wrong look or one bad play call could trigger an absolute avalanche of public backlash that could destroy her entire professional career. The fans are not going to give her a massive grace period. They are not going to be patient. They expect immediate dominance, absolute protection of their star, and a completely modernized offense. And if White fails to deeply deliver on any of those fronts, the stadium itself might absolutely revolt. Even more incredibly wild are the intense, highly secretive rumors currently circulating about exactly how the rest of the league is privately reacting to this massive, landscape-altering shift. Deep whisper campaigns from inside sources suggest that rival teams are watching this bizarre Indiana experiment with eager, almost malicious anticipation, deeply hoping that the intense internal friction will quickly cause the team to spectacularly implode from the inside out. They absolutely know that if the new coach stubbornly tries to enforce her rigid, highly aggressive style on a player who desperately thrives on absolute freedom, creativity, and incredible pace, it will end in an absolute, unmitigated disaster. This is the exact, terrifying scenario that was violently brought to light when the league's deeply toxic traits were exposed by Cunningham. The massive jealousy that was called out isn't just about media attention, sneaker deals, or magazine covers. It's about absolute, unquestioned control. The bitter veterans and the deeply established coaches desperately want to control the narrative of the sport. They want to dictate exactly how the game is played, who is allowed to be successful, and exactly who gets the ultimate glory. By blindly placing one of the most stubborn, highly defensive-minded coaches directly in charge of the most explosive, highly creative offensive rookie in sports history, the league has inadvertently set the ultimate stage for the most massive power struggle the sport has ever witnessed. Will the veteran coach actually adapt, swallow her own massive pride, and let her young star completely fly? Or will she ruthlessly enforce the exact same restrictive, punishing, old-school mindset that heavily defined her deeply controversial time in Connecticut? If she tragically chooses the latter, the furious, deeply passionate fans who are currently